Okay, so today's title is Childhood Interrupted, Exploring Early Trauma Through the ACEs Lens. Explain, that's me. I explained a little bit about me, and this is my call to action. It's sort of mysterious, but it's really to get your attention. Listen, we need to talk. Seriously, you will not believe what I just discovered. It's huge. I'm going to need you to get focused and listen carefully. This involves our children. Some of them are crying out for help and they need you. Are you still listening? I wanted to share what I discovered with you because I know you care. But let me warn you, this will change the way you see life. During your discovery, you may have a moment of shock and frustration, but you will soon see the light. This light will make all the difference for you and the children in your life. It's okay if you don't have any children. I know you know someone who does. They need to know this too. But there's something you need to do. You need to make a decision right now. Okay, which is it? Are you part of the problem or are the solution? So this image I'm showing you here, when I was working with women in birth and I was at the hospital with them, there was a chart, a reading that they would do to determine what their stress level was, stress as related to their ability to give birth. And so this is not them in labor, but this is them with threatened labor, if they're at beyond term, and the doctor wants to know if they can withstand labor. So what this is this that you see is the baby's heart rate, and the jump is the stress, a moment of stress that is put on the mothers, or just actually put on the baby, put on the mother, and the baby receives it. And it's in pregnancy, it's a small amount of stress. This is mechanical stress, and it's to test to see how strong the baby is. If the baby can take it, then the mother can go through labor. If the baby can't take it, then they'll suggest a cesarean. This is relative here in this conversation because it's an analogy. So if you can think about our life experiences as up and down, up and down, up and down, we have, you know, happy moments, we have sad moments, we have stressful moments, we have like very normal moments. We have all that up and down stuff, and children experience this every day. So it's like it's their birthday, they receive a present, they were told they were going, you know, they come back to, oh yeah, sorry, there's a normal line. So the up and downs toggle this normal line. So normal is complacent, right? It's the happy space. The space under there is the not so happy space. So birthday, getting presents, come back to normal. And then they lose a toy. So now they're down here, and then they come back to normal. Then there's their cousin comes to visit. Okay, then they come back to normal. And then they got in trouble, they get a spanking, whatever, right? They're down here. Okay, so this is normal life. When a stress happens in their life, like gunshot out the window, or somebody gets murdered in their family, or someone goes to jail, or someone, they get a beat down from somewhere, okay? That's that stress that really takes them out. And if they are depending on the level of stress, they might not be able to manage the comeback so easily. So there's a drop. If you can see right after that upward movement, there's a downward movement that's even further down than the other ones. And that's saying this was the hard one. This one was a hard one, right? So I want to just have you think about that. If when a child, we bring children into the world to grow them into healthy human beings. And life happens, and it's okay that life happens, but there's times when this life is too heavy, it's too hard, and adult stresses wind up in children's lives, and children become more responsible than they need to be, maybe taking care of an adult. So now you have all these extra extra stresses that really act as a pancake that's too heavy for that child to manage. So we know those things. We heard of physical abuse in the house. We've heard whether it's directed at the child or the mother or any other person in the house. We've heard of family members being taken away to be incarcerated. We've heard of divorce or separation, and we've heard of neglect. We've heard of mental illness or depression and alcoholism, substance abuse. So these are some of the stresses that families experience. These are the stresses these are the results of those stresses in children and in adults. So we have heard of ADHD in children. Attention deficit hypo disorder. And that's where the child just can't sit still. And there's, I'm not going to get into what all these are, but a lot of this has to do with the foundation of the stress that the child is raised with: depression, anxiety, conflict, sleeplessness, obesity, fibroids, okay, learning difficulty. Adverse childhood experiences are emotional neglect, physical neglect, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, incarceration, household violence, household mental illness, parental separation, and household substance abuse. So I'm going to stop the share for now. Adverse childhood experiences is relatively, is gaining more popularity. This phrase, it's been around for 15 years, well, maybe more like 18 now. But we're now hearing more about it. So I'm curious to know how many of you have heard about it. I see a lot of cameras off. What are y'all doing? Cooking, eating, sleeping? So if you could come off onto the screen so I can see you, off onto audio so I can hear you. And even, oh, that's right, you don't have audio privileges. Can you type in the chat? So what I'm looking for is if you've heard of ACEs. And the ACEs that are mentioned here are 10 ACEs. They are the ACEs that was, thank you, Nzinga. They are the ACEs that are attached to a study that was developed about a little bit more than 15 years ago. But there's more ACEs. Over time, other people have created studies. The ACEs, so this study, I'll say about this study, just really briefly. The study was done through Kaiser Permanente the health insurance. Thank you, Kristen, for sharing you haven't heard about ACEs. And this health insurance, the members of the health insurance were pretty much well-to-do, right? Middle class, upper middle class people. They were educated. And when they did this study, I'm going to have some stats in a few minutes. The study revealed that a large percent of them experienced these ACEs. And that was shocking because these were people who you would think were able to manage life. And not only were they educated and financially stable, even beyond financially stable, they were also of European descent. So the word around the street is that people of color have high stress, and we do. But at the opposite, the other side of the coin was that European people don't. But this study showed differently. Now, there's other stresses that people of color have. So if you can imagine these 10 plus the other ones, which I'm going to share in a few slides, you'll see a different picture of what we experience as people in this country. So I'm going to put you on another slide. And this is a boy, the story of a boy who has some ACEs, but you're going to see his life and how it shows up. He's going to be talking to you about the ACEs as he learns about them. And it might be a little triggering because of the arguing in the background.
My parents don't understand. All the drinking and fighting means I'm scared. I'd like a cuddle, perhaps a bedtime story, but mostly I'd like them to stop shouting at me. And sometimes they hit me. Feeling scared every day and not feeling loved or wanted will change me for the rest of my life. Later, I'll have problems at school, problems with alcohol, and I'll get in trouble with the police. What's happening to me right now means I'm more likely to have serious health problems in middle age and die sooner than I should. Doctors say my life is full of adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. But in my world, this means I see my dad hitting my mum. Dad's got a drinking problem, and mum's always crying, even with the tablets. I am always being shouted at and hit. After the booze and fags, there's not a lot of money for toys or clothes, or even food. I'm getting used to being scared all the time. Now I'm just angry. Doctors say things are changing inside me. My brain isn't learning how to control my feelings properly. My body can't relax like those kids who don't have ACEs, so my body won't be able to repair itself properly when I get older, making it more likely I'll get cancer or heart disease as an adult. It hurts when my parents hit me, but the real damage is hidden, and that damage will be with me for life.
I drink and smoke. They say I'm out of control, but I'm not. It's just my way of coping with my ACEs. I've been in plenty of fights, but what's wrong with that? Kids' punches don't hurt half as much as when my dad hits me. I beat up a kid last week at school because he looked at me weird. Who cares? I ended up with more time out of school. Learning's not for me anyway, and the teachers don't care any more than my parents. I don't like the way anyone looks at me except my girl. She's 16 and pregnant, just like my mum was with me.
So this is where I've ended up. I've got diabetes and cancer's probably on the way. I know these kill you, but I couldn't do without them. I've never had a proper job and I've spent time inside. I hate my kids I hit their mum too, until she left, so my kids have grown up with aces. And now my daughter had her first kid. She's 16. The course of my life was set in the wrong direction a long time ago. I know where I'm heading, and sadly I know where my kids are heading too. This doesn't have to happen. A little help in childhood makes a big difference to where life takes you. When I was a baby, the nurses noticed that my mum wasn't coping and helped her and explained how important my childhood is to the rest of my life. So, with a bit of help, she coped. The police came round after next door complained about the noise from Mum and Dad fighting. They asked how I was feeling. I told them I was scared all the time. Mum and Dad got help. The shouting got better and the hitting stopped. I even got some bedtime stories. I still had problems at school, but the teacher asked me about what was happening at home. I got help controlling my feelings. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough. I'm now married with 2 children, and I've got a job, most of the time. I haven't repeated the same problems with my kids. We got help when being a parent got too much. Our children are ace-free, and that means their kids stand a good chance of growing up ace-free as well. Almost half the people in England and Wales experienced 1 ace as a child, and 1 in 10 of us suffered 4 or more aces. If we stop aces, millions of children would not become smokers or binge drinkers, and levels of violence in adults would be cut in half. Fewer aces in childhood also means fewer adults developing diseases like cancer, heart disease and diabetes in middle age. We all need to be ace aware. Are you? Doctors, police, nurses, teachers, firefighters and most importantly parents. The more you know about aces, the more you can help stop children growing up with aces in their lives. And for those of you who have already suffered aces, the more you know, the more you can help yourself and others who have suffered aces cope.
Okay. So let's talk. Let me see your faces. What did you notice about this boy? What was his life like as a child?
It was so hectic where, yeah, there was always yelling, screaming, fighting, physical abuse, verbal abuse. And I can only imagine as an adult trying to regulate my my feelings, emotions, experiences, but learning how to cope in that type of hectic situation, or like trying to learn how to regulate all of those different emotions or experiences that you have come up. I can understand why it would just kind of streamline into one emotion, which is anger, and that comes out in other places. It doesn't seem like it always happens that way, but it, yeah, made me think about how those experiences and feelings can be overwhelming.
Yes. Children don't have tools. They don't have tools. They're not supposed to have tools. They're supposed to be children and enjoy life and be trained and guided. And they're given a lot. But they would have tools if the parents had tools or if the community had tools. So in this household, his parents didn't have tools. And then the community was absent. They came in order to, like, you know, to stop, to put a Band-Aid on, but it wasn't long lasting. So what happened? What happened to this little boy? All right, can we read Chris? Oh, Christian has to leave. Okay. Well, I don't know if you can catch the replay, but thank you. And Jalen, can you come off of mute? You're trying to say something? I think you can come off of mute. And Zinga, can you help Jalen come off of mute? Thank you. Hi, and I know I pronounced your name wrong. Please help me out.
No, you said it's right.
Oh,
Yeah, Jailan, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So I heard what you were saying, but sometimes it's very hard when, of course, you definitely the expert part here. I just lived the situations before and I saw it in many different kids, and I'm a substitute teacher too, so I see it in many problematic children in their lives. But my question is how you can get in control of the how to get inside the house. One of my ideas was to bring the behavior centers that exist outside, and we have our insurance to cover it, to help the children, to bring a sample of these behavior centers inside the schools, okay, which can help the parents and the child at the same time, and the teacher. So this is the triangle that we need to address. But we're still gonna miss what's happening inside the house. You know what I mean? Like, you can deal with the divorce because both parents can come to the school and they can attend. But with the violence, how you, especially if the father or the mother develop the violence due to the stress inside the mother or the father inside the house, which she or he is going to take it on their child.
Mhm.
You see how it's always starts from inside the child's house.
Yes.
I'm not in support of separating children from their parents. I'm not in support of that. You know,
Mhm.
sometimes it's for their life concern. I understand, but it's also still not healthy.
Yeah, and this is why I'm having these conversations, because I would love to be able to work within the household, but that oftentimes doesn't work. It's not possible. But we are all in the community, right? So some police officers get to be trained on understanding ACEs so they can be better interact with the community and be less judgmental, and to be that person who can be trusted, so they see a child walking home from school. Like back in the day, my experience was that the cop, would say, "Hi, how you doing?" And they would know. They would also do the same thing with the adults walking, so they knew there was a connection between this kid and their parents, and they lived in that house. And that adult, that was one adult in the community that offered a buffer for that child. Then there was the school crossing guard, and then there's the in my experience, it was Miss Ein, right? And lived in the house between my school and where I was living. So she knew my grandmother well. So whenever 3 o'clock came, she was standing outside. There were other neighbors that did the same thing. So bringing the community back is one of those major issues, major concerns. The librarian, just people. I can list everybody that we know in the neighborhood, but if people understand this, then they'll be able to be there for the child. If they can't be there for the parents, they can at least say, "Hey kid, I'm here to talk with you. This is my experience," or, "Here, did you eat today?" Or, "I see your coat's, kind of dirty. You don't want us to wash it together? Let's go to the laundromat and wash it," or something like that. So I know that it's hard, and definitely, yes, to hold that peace in the school, I would love to see that. It is happening in more and more schools, and that's something you can bring up to your principal. I don't know where you work, but create those alliances.
Yeah, and I from what's happening now with the idea of restructuring the police too, it's one of the ideas is building the connection between the police and the community, which I love it. I saw many ideas like how to be a mentor between one-to-one between a police officer and a teenage to help them out. But I'm also more with having a community-based therapist, psychology, in one community. Like I saw this in Trenton, where they built an ideal place in Trenton in New Jersey. They built an ideal community development, where they have their own environment and they have their own social worker for the community. Behavior, small behavior center, but just to go for the kids to play, and it's protected, like the kids can be safe playing outside. And the children also can go to the center and speak inside the community, inside the development, and speak with a therapist, just to talk. Trusty, they trust that they can talk to someone who can listen to them. This concept is, this is a family community. When I saw that, I saw a really a good idea for a building one family, big one family. And this is one of the things that you were mentioning before when you were talking about the European descendant and how they have the more problems in their house. And I think this is more because, and this is just a guessing, we have this family connection, like we have people in our house all the time, and we develop this family, like I want my mother, I want my sister, I want, you know what I mean? Where I noticed it, and I don't like stuff with the colors, but I noticed it with more the white people. They don't have this. It's the business of the life, the movement, the far, and the, you know what I mean? So there is the disconnect in the definition of family and keeping the family, because children like to be with children, with other children. They like to grow up with the other children and always be there with them and with the family, with the aunt, with the mom, with the dad. So yeah. Maybe you can explain this more. It's just an observation. I don't know even if it's right or not.
Yeah, there is, with more family in the household, there's more support. There's potential to be more support. And when you're, so I'm thinking back to the 1950s, and this is a different scenario, but this is probably where it began, like in the 1950s when there was the, oh, what was the era? It's like, so it was, people were leaving their city life and going into the suburbs. Families were leaving, so women would get married and then they would leave their family, their birth family, their parents in the city, and they would go with their husband to the suburbs and buy this house, and then they would have all these great appliances, and they were living the modern life. Like, this was the beginning of the modern life. And when they did that, so then this is like the leading into the feminist conversation. It's like the women were isolated, and now they were putting on the image of what the ideal wife would look like, but they weren't happy. They weren't happy doing that. It was all about image. So now the bigger picture of that, extended to today, is that we're in this idea of what things are supposed to be and how they're supposed to look, without the support of the family and without the trust of the community. Is who are you going to talk to? If you're new in the community, if you are wanting things to look a certain way, and you can't, like, you don't feel that you could trust anybody to let them into your life, then you're just by yourself. So this is a part of what I'm seeing, what you're explaining, and I'm sure, and I know there's more to it, but I'm not prepared to answer that. But I do, regardless, or I should say, in addition to that family that is by themselves and the family that is more of a larger unit, the community still needs to be active and involved. And there's still abuses that can happen in both families and in both communities. The more people who are aware, the more people who are concerned, the better that it can be. And I also want to say that the stats, so I mentioned about, I didn't get into the stats, but what the stats were found about in these in Kaiser Permanente, they paralleled the stats from other communities, other cultures. So it's not that one culture has a whole lot more stress than the other, more ACEs than the other. It's the same. We are living in America. We are all living the same life. So let me put that slide up so that we can talk about that. Okay, so one ACE, any of those 10 ACEs, one of those ACEs, right? 2 out of 3 Americans have at least one ACE. 4 or more ACEs, pick any 4. 1 out of 6 Americans have 4 or more ACEs. The more ACEs that you have, the greater your chance of having chronic disease, mental illness, or violence in your adult life, and many other situations. The more ACEs that you have, the shorter your life span, truth be told. So the other ACEs are watching a sibling being abused, losing a caregiver, that's anybody who's been taking care of you, homelessness, surviving and recovering from a severe accident, witnessing a father being abused by a mother, witnessing a grandmother abusing a father, neighborhood violence, bullying, racism, and foster care. These are the other ACEs.
Yeah, tell me about bullying. It's the highest in schools.
Right. So what children see in their household or in their community, they pass on. It's also, you know, it's generational. For one thing, it's like what you see, you do. Also what you feel, you do. What you fear, you act out. And the other generational piece is that if the parent was a child that was living in a household that was abusive, or that where there was an alcoholic or substance abuse, then that parent has now, that child, that parent that was a child then, now has cells that are programmed, that this is, they're programmed to be in that space. So they're ready to live life, because life is going to be giving them these bad scenarios. As a child, this is what they're thinking. Their cells have made it real. Their cells have programmed this. Their cells are programmed. And now they become an adult, and it's so-called part of their personality. Now, this is who the adult is. The adult never got the tools that they need as a child. The adult still doesn't have the tools as an adult, and they're parenting their children. So they're only going to pass on what they know, what is in the cells. So they gave birth to their child with those same cells.
Do you think it's inherited?
It is inherited. It is inherited. Yep. And it's not just the inheritance from your mother, but you also have your grandmother and her mother or her parents, right? Both man and female, both the parents are inside of us. Their experiences are inside of us.
But you can reprogram this inheritance by changing child's life at the moment, right?
Yes, you can deprogram your life. You can deprogram your child's life. And that's where resilience comes in. And that's the work that I do. So it's not the end of the story. The story is just beginning. We saw this young boy in this video. What was some of his resilience? Like, he turned the story around. He says, if such and such happened, then this is what, you know, he just rewrote his story. So what are some of those things that he did to rewrite his story?
I have getting the help from the by his parents getting the help early enough.
Right.
This is how he changed. He basically need to ask for help, and his parents need to accept to be treated
Yes.
to get the help, which you have to be strong enough, especially if it's an abusive household. There is the fear of speaking, and that's what we see, especially with women abuse, that they are always scared to speak up.
Right.
Isn't that why we have even the Me Too movement? It's part of it, the violence in the house.
Yeah, so there's the supports, knowing the supports. If you have any information about how a woman can build herself, you know, the little affirmations will help, because a lot of times the woman doesn't feel good about herself. So if she doesn't feel good about herself, then she doesn't feel that she's worthy enough to seek another way out, or what you say to her is not going to be believable to her. And she's going to be like, well, this is just my life and I'll just live it out.
Yep. And the lack of money, the lack of self-empowerment, self-confidence.
Right. So it's about empowering. It's about empowering each person, empowering yourself to empower the next person, empower the child, so that they can make better decisions, and never to feel like there is no way out. There is always a way out, and there's always something we can do, even if it's a small thing. And I definitely get your passion and desire to want to change things.
Oh yeah, many things.
Yeah.
Many things. But yes, I understand. My kids, I have 3 now in college and 1 he finished. But 3 of them, they experienced bullying in school. So I knew about bullying, and they experienced divorce, which between me and their dad. But which affected them. But we did. But I mean, it's not they. In my case, it was better for their mental health than staying when there is no connection. Bullying was the major thing because they experienced it in school while everything was okay in the house, but it was the external factor there, which coming from school, and 3 of them. So it was one of the things that I was studying and trying to see how we can end it in bullying. But
Is a school?
It tells you it comes from home. From my research, I found out that even if the school has a limitation, so it doesn't have the full capacity to deal with it. That's why I say, okay, then you need, not all schools have specialized therapists inside the school, so they need that. Not all of them are specialized. It needs funding, it needs money, it needs more research and more studies to convince the Department of Education that it needs to fund school systems and give them to take care of the children, to address bullying. And it needs changes in our, I don't know how to say it, but the more you change the thinking of competitiveness, okay, where the child is not competing with another child to win something, and focus more on kindness and compassion, where they can take it back to their house, because this is our hope only, that the children can bring something inside the house where they have their own power to say no, no to whatever you are giving me. You know what I mean? Having their own mind.
Yes. And when and that's actually, that's why I teach mindfulness. So mindfulness, I teach it for children. I also teach it for parents. And part of mindfulness is kindness, loving kindness. when you when you are comfortable with who you are, then there's no need for you to hurt anybody else. Like if you're experiencing love for yourself, then you're going to experience love for others. And it's not that love in the way where if you're bullying someone, it doesn't necessarily mean that you hate yourself. It just might mean that you need to be more tender with yourself. And if you can be more tender with yourself, then you can be tender with others, because we are all mirrors of each other. And where mindfulness helps to slow a person down. It helps them to think clearer. It helps them to be connected to the next person. It helps them to regulate their emotions. And it's a great tool to have, to share with your child, so that they'll be able to manage social situations better. In school is just a microcosm of the world. So you have everything that's inside of the school building is pretty much on the outside in the world. And the children need to know how to navigate those life circumstances just inside the school as much as they would need to learn outside as adults.
It's true, because one bully, to confirm what you're saying, one child who's bullied, he can transform 3 or 4 kind children to be another bully as a self-defense.
Exactly.
While if you looked at the other side, if you transform the bully into a kind person, you eliminate the bullying itself for the 5 of them.
Right.
Because it's not there to exist. If you know how to address it with the bully first, without punishing thing, because the punishment, it creates more aggressiveness, more, okay, I'm gonna get more angry for it. But it's
right.
easier to address it with the bully before the effect goes to the other children.
Yes, and you said something you said that's really important is that and now I'm not remembering the exact words that you used, but the idea is that you're going to create more of a problem by putting punishment on the person, and that's re-traumatizing. There's a term that's called re-traumatizing. So if you take the child that's from the household and their parent is very stern with them, or they, let's say in school, right? Teachers will punish a child for not having done their homework. And the punishment, obviously the teacher wants the child to do the homework. The punishment might be you have to miss lunch to do the homework. Or you miss recess so you can do your work. But what's happening inside the child's home is that maybe the child was up all night because the parents were arguing. Or maybe the child had to babysit their younger sibling because the parent was working, both parents are out working, or the one parent that's around is working. So the child didn't have time to do the homework because they were busy, or they were stressed. So that's the trauma inside the household that they leave to come to school to get re-traumatized when the teacher doesn't try to understand or doesn't get that they need to understand what's happening with that child. And re-traumatization doesn't help at all.
It's true. I had one of my students, she was 16, she was working 2 jobs and trying to catch up with her homework at school.
Right. So
I understand what you're saying. So, but that's take you to, instead of punishing, rewards, help, and understand.
Yes. And finding out what's going on. So this next slide, ending soon. We have a tendency to look at the child or the person and say, what's wrong with you? Right? That doesn't help, because that's just more judgment, more trauma. The real question is, what happened to you? Right? So ask the question, how's your day? What's going on? What's in your life? Who is in your household? Is someone there to help you with your homework? What happened? Why are you upset today? Finding out, just whatever questions you can ask to find out what's happening. So, my offer is to be aware, to be mindful, and to be resilient. And this is my closing slides. And this is my mindfulness course for parents that I teach. It's six sessions, 6 weeks. My next session is July 11th. And I look at the parent as an individual. So in our conversations, we're looking at where the parent is, what the parent is experiencing, what the triggers are the parent is noticing and dealing with the children, and having them remember themselves as children so that they'll be able to identify where the conversations need to begin and where it starts, right? So the conversation starts with the parent inside. What is the parent thinking? And then continues on with the child, because there's mirrors there. You're my child, we have certain similarities, and I have experiences that are impacting the way that I'm raising you. And I have, and getting the parent to look at this child as an individual so they can respect that child as an individual, but not as so much of an extension of the parent. So that's what the mindfulness is. It's also teaching meditation, and it's also helping to parent to share mindfulness with their own children. And this is mindfulness for children, which I did this morning, and what I did this morning was really like just little bits of activities that I can do with the parents or the schools or the community centers and the churches with the children. So it's me and the children, and sometimes the parents are there and sometimes they're not. But what I was saying was that what I did this morning was really little samples of activities that I could do. I also do coaching, working with the adult, having them look at their inner child and creating an opening for their resilience. And this is how you can reach me. Trauma.com is my website. KeenYofu@gmail.com is my email. And my Instagram name is Keen Yofu.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you for the discussion.
Thank you. So, Nzinga, I'm going to write these in the chat.
Hello. Thank you so much. Would you like to open up the floor for any questions or comments in the last couple minutes?
Yeah, sure. I can do that.
All right.
I don't know who's there.
Hello, folks. Feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions or concerns or anything. If you learned something new, feel free to share it.
Folks had a long day today.
Yeah.
And this is a heavy topic, so they're like, oh no.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for presenting and taking us through this taking us through this heavy topic, starting off the day with us and closing it out as well. We definitely appreciate you and all of your guidance.
I see a hand. Inez has a hand.
Okay.
I thought that was a clap.
Oh, it could be either way. All right, so you want that to be a clap. Okay, thank you. I'll take that. Thank you, Jaylene. And thank you everyone for being a part of this very, very exciting experience. This online is with multiple rooms and options and entertainment and information and speakers and other folks. So Juneteenth, this is going down in history.
Oh, it really is. It's been absolutely wonderful, completely surpassed my thoughts and expectations. So I just want to say thank you. We appreciate you. All right, that looks like it's it. If anybody wants to say anything, feel free. Otherwise,
Oh, you unmuted us. Thank you. Everything went so well. I came late, but I enjoyed it. I love the discussion. I love the family atmosphere thing. I really do. I did.
wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, all the learning, all the sharing, everything went so well. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Thanks for organizing and managing us.
Oh. Thanks. It definitely was. I'm grateful that I was able to help out and just lend a hand in helping make this happen.
You did.
Yes. Great job, Nzinga.
Yeah.
So proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, dear.
It was really great.
We will hire you for all our events.
Nzinga?
Yeah.
Well, shout out to Umoja Events. Just absolutely amazing. I'm so grateful that they put this whole event together with thousands of people. Like, that's incredible.
Thank you, dear.
All right, everyone. Peace and many blessings. Happy Father's Day to any fathers in your life. And I hope you have a safe, wonderful weekend.
Same to you.
The rest of your
Have an amazing day tomorrow, guys. Enjoy it. And happy Father's Day to all fathers in heaven and earth, grandfathers, all fathers. So we don't forget them.
I'll share.
All
All
right.
right. Blessings,
See ya.
everyone.
Bye.